think about it rationally, I believe, right, that the end game is there's a threat to the status quo. And the status quo is a pretty big deal. Banking system, fiat currency, central banking, American hegemony, world reserve currency, all of that, in theory, Bitcoin is a better form of money. Gold has been money for 5,000 years. Gold is the only money in the world, right? Everything else is credit, to quote JP Morgan. Gold is money. Money is an asset that exists in the absence of a liability. Gold is the only thing that does it. Now, Bitcoin is the new thing, and I think it's digital gold, but gold is money. Everything else is credit. It's backed by debt. So the center of every monetary system is gold. Every central bank owns gold at the base, and then they print fiat on top of it. It used to be that they were tied to precious metals. The pound note is called a pound note because you used to get a pound of sterling silver in exchange. Now it takes 174 pounds. You used to get gold or silver when you turned in your green pieces of paper in the United States. But we did away with that in the 70s. So there is no gold backing. So what do? We have gold at the base layer of money, and we have fiat. And the fiat is simply money because people, through belief and custom, agree to exchange it. But the only store of value is gold, right? 1 ounce, fine person's suit for last 5,000 years, from Cleopatra to a zoot suit in the 20s to Savile Row suit like you're probably wearing today, or St. John's knits, right? 1 ounce buys you a fine person's suit. So it's beautiful, by the way. And I like the color too. But the interesting thing is that system of fiat on top of gold is under duress because this new thing, blockchain technology, which replaces trust with truth, right? In the old days, I lent you money and you had to trust me that I wrote down in my ledger that, I lent you $100, you owe me 110. You come back with 110 and say, oh no, Michelle, I wrote down 200, you owe me 220. You couldn't trust. So the Medicis came along 800 years ago and said, no, Michelle, you keep a ledger, Mark, you keep a ledger. And we, the benevolent Medicis, for a small fee, will decide that you both wrote down the right number. Trust. And that industry has grown today, 800 years later, to $7 trillion a year of fees for those accounts, those money transfers, cross-border transfers, $7 trillion. So now we have a protocol that says, you don't have to have a ledger. I don't have to have a ledger. There is one public ledger, encrypted, permanent, secure, untouchable. And if I have a Bitcoin and I send it to you, we don't need a bank account. We don't need a wire transfer fee. We don't need any of that. And when no money changed hands, who cares? Just ignore it, laugh at it. But when tens, now hundreds of billions of dollars left the banking system, which is a little bit over leveraged, and went into the Celsiuses, the BlockFis, the FTXs, the Coinbases, now suddenly the banks are like, whoa, this is real. So if I'm a bank or a financial institution or a government, I might do what China did. I'm going to ban it. But the problem with a decentralized system, you can't kill it. Like when Napster came along, right? In the old days, I had a record album. I handed you the record album and you had it. And I could only play it if you gave it back to me, analog. Right. Then we went to electronic, where I just encoded my songs in MP3s. I made a copy, sent you a copy. You're happy. I'm happy. Music industry, not happy. They want you to buy a copy. So what do? They go to Napster, one CEO, one home office, one server, arrest the CEO, blow up the server, no more Napster. So now how do we all get music? We all have a digital streaming service and we all pay. And the artists get paid. So that's actually cool. And that's what Web3 is going to do, make the creator go direct. But ultimately, in money, we'd never had a way to transfer digitally without the security of double payments, right? There were lots of attempts. There was eGold and Phoenix and all these things that tried to make money electronic. But you always had the risk that someone would just make a copy of the file and print money, and only central governments can do that. So now I think it's logical that those that are threatened are doing what is logical, right? They're using all of the things. It's legal to lobby. It's totally legal, right? There are rules, and as long as you don't break the rules, it's legal. Now, some people skirt the rules, like Sam's mom, and go around the rules, campaign finance stuff, but they still do it in some ways, not illegally, so they're not in jail. But I would say there's a difference between tax avoidance. You should avoid all the taxes that you can, but tax evasion, bad, go to jail. So never cross the line. And so I do believe that they, meaning the incumbents, are going to do everything they can to slow. But if you, back to China, if you ban it, what happens? It's like squeezing a balloon. It just goes someplace else. Yeah. So if you have thousands of nodes and you shut down 1 or 10 or 100, it doesn't matter. It's still resilient, and more nodes will pop up. And so what they, I think, have realized is this is inevitable, but you can slow it down. How do you slow it down? You make on-ramps and off-ramps harder. In fact, if you just got rid of them for a while. But this is no different than the 1840s free banking era, when there was a whole bunch of banks that went bad and belly up. And then by 1913, it took 70 years. By 1913, there was a central bank. And then we had the savings and loan debacle, and then we had the global financial crisis. So bank problems are not the problem, right? And everybody says, oh, these exchanges were the problem. No, the people were the problem. Hate the player, not the game. Sam and Carolyn and whoever else was complicit, the other Sam or whoever, I'm not accusing anybody, but whoever else was complicit, they're the bad people. The exchange is not bad. The idea of exchange, the idea of safekeeping your assets with a centralized exchange so they can be lent and borrowed and used, is they can try just about anything, but it won't work because, American exceptionalism, we all think all the smart people live in America, all the good companies are in America. Nope, it's a big world. And, US crypto volume, 20-ish%, maybe a little higher. Most of it's a global industry. Most of the nodes are outside the US and Bitcoin, et cetera. So what'll happen is if we become overly onerous regulatorily, if that's a word, it'll just pop up in other jurisdictions. And you've seen other jurisdictions embrace this, and they'll get labeled as money laundering and terrorist havens, and that's the way the world reserve currency owner has always acted, right? When the UK was the world reserve currency, right, the US was an emerging market run by gangs, and it was really bad place. And again, watch the movie Gangs in New York from 1860s. It was not really a fun place to live. And the UK, sun never set on the UK. I mean, sun never set on the British Empire. Yeah. So, and pound sterling was the world reserve currency. So now that we are the world reserve currency, we'd like to stay there. But China would like to be the world reserve currency, and maybe they get there. I don't know. Maybe Bitcoin ultimately probably is a better world reserve currency. Probably has a role relative to base layer of money, the same way gold has for the last 5,000 years. So ultimately, we win because this technology is inevitable. It is superior technology. Triple entry accounting is better than dual entry accounting. Encrypted, permanent, secure ledgers are superior to, middle people using COBOL and Fortran mainframes. It's not a good system. The SWIFT system is 70 years old. It needs to go away. And we can transfer money anywhere in the world for free using the Bitcoin blockchain on a company that we invested in called Strike. Okay, that's better than paying 12% to Western Union and another 12% to Bank of International Settlements. That's just foolish. So that will get displaced, but incumbents are always going to fight. And I think the regulation, they're going to try to say that anything that isn't Bitcoin or Ethereum, they're going to try to make it a security so they can regulate it. They may even try to say Ethereum and Bitcoin are securities. Kind of tough since they said twice that they're not, but they might. Again, I'm not saying that these people are trying to be logical at this point. They're trying to do what their shareholders want. I mean, people forget the Fed, for example. The Fed is neither federal nor has reserves. It's owned by the banks. It's not a federal agency. It's not a government agency. There are no reserves. There's no extra money lying around. It is an entity owned by the banks to facilitate, as a lender of last resort, the banking industry. Right. So that's a very different role than a government watchdog. So my guess is we're going to see regulation come down first to punish. They're going to punish the evildoers. Although it's going to be kind of ironic if you convince the world through this PR campaign that he's not evil, that he's just a misunderstood, philanthropist, which is mind-numbing that was printed in print. If that's, then how are you going to punish him if you decide in the court of public opinion he's not a bad person? It's kind of like remember when OJ held up the hands and he said the gloves don't fit because he didn't put them on all the way? Okay, he can say, I didn't know I was doing it, but the facts are less than $1 billion of assets, 10 billion of liabilities. Where's the money then, Sam?